Hello again, folks, and today I wanted to take a little bit of a deep dive, and you might hear some wind. So what? We're in the great outdoors with the river right behind, and hey, I got a park bench all to myself. I wanted to start out with a little story, and this is not exactly how the story went, but I'll kind of make it up as I go, but it's along this lines. Years ago, somebody referred to the backside of a tree. And as a little kid, I kind of wondered. I looked at a tree, I walked all the way around it, and I go, it's kind of round. How do you know what the front side or the back side of the tree is? Well, I asked my dad one day, and he said, son, the back side of the tree is where I just urinated. So I had the call of the wild and had to find the back side of a tree. Now, the topic for the day is, it's okay to die. Well, is that a good question or a good point to make? It's okay to die? Not really, eh? Why? We don't want to die, sure. There's a biological imperative within us, I think all of us, to not want to die. And there's probably a mental imperative within us to not want to die. I mean, we want to live, don't we? We are pro-life when it comes to ourselves, surely. And there is another sort of ethereal aspect to us, which I think is very empowering, and it points to the Inner Genie Project, which is, you could say, this spiritual aspect to us, this divine aspect to us, which when grappled with, we realize it is okay to die. Because the truth of it is, death is inevitable. And I would say that the reason why the controllers of the world, the outer world, are able to control us is because we have the fear of death, and we allow the physical and the mental aspect of that to rise within us for good reason. And we comply. Because at the end of the day, for the controllers, it's comply or die. This is what has been the methodology of all psychopaths, right? However, when we experience a point in life where we have either a near-death experience, or we put ourselves into positions and situations where, whether the danger was real or perceived, it was so dire that once we got through, it's like, F it. Might as well just live. Live with awareness, so we don't put ourselves in real danger. But at the same time, we go forward with this great, not so much confidence as boldness, you might say, in life. And we become sort of vulnerable, but not weak vulnerable, but honest vulnerable, if you will. And for me, I've had, of course, as you probably have had, many experiences in life where you live on the edge, kind of thing. For example, when I did my walk of 8,000 kilometers, there was one point where, well, a lot of the points, where I was afraid of the great outdoors, to the point where, there might be bears running around, because I slept in a bivy sack, which wasn't even a tent. It was basically a cover for my sleeping bag, to keep the insects off, basically, and the rain off my sleeping bag. And I remember this one night, and I talk about this in my book, about lessons learned through 10 million steps, which you can see the cover of anyways on the website innergenie.com. You click on books, you'll see it there. And this was a place in northern Ontario near Nipigon. I was walking along the road, and this Jeep pulled over, and the guy said, he said, jump in the Jeep, I'll run you past the bears ahead. They're eating it looks like they've killed something, and they're eating something beside the road. And of course, I had committed to walking the whole distance, and I said, no, that's okay. I'll take my precautions as I go forward with my walking sticks and so on, and I'll get past them. And he said, you probably shouldn't. It was getting late in the day anyway. He said, if you want, you can jump in it, and I can run you back down the road a few kilometers where we got our camp, and you can stay there, and at least in the morning they'll probably be gone. Yeah, it was 7 or 8 in the evening. I said, sure, that's fine. So backtracked. I think it was about 5 kilometers, which kind of sucks when you're walking, because 5 kilometers takes a while to get along the road. So And he said, okay, there's a spot by the lake here. You can camp here, and I'll go get my buddy. He's got some bear bangers. He'll come back and make sure you're fine. So off he went, and a little while later, he and his buddy arrived back with no bear bangers, but this old guy gave me great assurance, he said, because he told me how to fend off bears in the night. So he basically told me they're quite, they have a vulnerability. He said when they'll come around, he said they'll snuffle against your tent, and you wind up and you punch them as hard as you can in the nose, and they'll go howling off into the woods, and that they won't bother you anymore. And at the moment I was like, thanks, buddy, that gives me some great assurance. And then I said, well, like there was bear manure on the road, on the path beside, and I set my tent off to the side. And I said, well, where would the bears go? He said, well, they'll walk by this path. But he said, as long as you're so many feet off there, they'll probably just walk by you. They won't bother you. Well, let me tell you one thing. I didn't sleep very well that night, but I did wake up, and my, was I ever happy to see the sunlight. But the process of it, and a few others like that throughout the walk, the process of that allowed me to, in my slumber, realize that, you know what? It's okay to experience life with the threat of death. And because of that, I think I've grown to the point of not being completely oblivious to death, and not living in a state of not fearing death. I mean, certainly physically, like, there's aspects of us, right? I can touch my hand here, and there's physical. I can be conscious of the fact that there are thoughts that I'm now using my windpipe and lips to blow air into a language that you probably understand, which are a sort of a pantomime of the thoughts, or a resemblance of the thoughts. But there's also this very, very deep experience that we all have, which is this otherworldly almost aspect of ourselves, which is very deep and very fundamental to us, which we can, I think it makes us human. We can grapple with, and from there we can see how one person with a similar body to another person, one is full of fear and one has boldness. And I think the difference is that constitution, if you will, of probably a lot of experience, but also getting through those experiences and realizing it's okay to die. There's an old saying, I think it was Chris Christopherson once said, that freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. When we get to the point of realizing that we're not attached to our possessions, including our own life, then we can do amazing things. Our actions become much more bold, and we don't really have to care so much about all the minutiae of the physicality. I don't know. And I think, of course, coming back to the Inner Genie project, this is very deep into that, right? Because this is a conversation that hopefully leads us to actions, and if we can get more boldness in our actions, I think we're going to be better off. I'm losing my earpiece here, which means I'm going to lose my mic in a second if it falls. There we go. Oh. All right. So much for a very amateur, shall we say, video production here. But hopefully this was helpful. If you like what I'm doing, once again, like, subscribe, and share. And once again, thank you for the comments. Those of you who do chime in, it's great. And if it's just one individual I talk to, that's perfectly fine, because I do like a good conversation. Talk again soon. Bye for now.